times and
start video. Do that too.
I can't locate the chat button. I just want to make sure you got record that I'm in attendance in this meeting. My name is Andy Zajac.
Andy, I got you down. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Got the pencil.
John, I left you a message. This is Jamie Rodriguez from the Southern Board.
Hey, Jamie.
How are you, bud?
Good.
Thank you.
If you want to put your name in the chat, and also that's SCSOA, so
Okay.
that whoever is going to be responsible on the Western Board for sending the secretaries of the other boards, those individuals who attend, just make sure that you identify yourself and your board affiliation if you need to be marked as attending.
Okay.
All right. You want to get started? Right at 7
Sure.
o'clock. Okay. First of all, I'm Jim Matraga, president of the WCSOA. And welcome, of course, to our first virtual meeting, hopefully our last one, but I don't think that's going to be that way. What I would like to, for attendance purposes, if you were to type your name in the chat, that would be the best way to go about that. If you are a referee from another board attending, also put down your affiliation, you know, with whatever board you're on. And Lee Lewis, our secretary, will be able to send an email. I also thought that you might want to, again, if you're coming from a different board, you might want to send Lee Lewis saying you attended this meeting. This is what we used to do anyway. And he would forward it to your proper secretary. So, and coaches, you know, welcome as well. We have an agenda, but mostly this is our interpretation meeting and for rules changes and updates. And John Shirley, who's our state interpreter, we're lucky enough to get him this year, is going to do his presentation. We are, Joe, we are recording this, by the way, so if somebody has trouble with technology or for some reason can't get on it, there will be a link later. I'll be able to send it to you. So, okay. So we're going to mute everybody, or if you can mute yourself, that might even be a better way of doing it. And John has capability of doing that as well. And I'd like to let's pay attention to John Shirley. Thank you, John.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. And thanks to the Western Board for having me. As Jim said, we do a rotation every 3 years. The state interpreter goes to all the boards, 2 boards a year, and gives this presentation. It's a way for us to maintain alignment and consistency across the state. You know, the fact that we're doing regional play this year doesn't excuse us from using the same rules and the same philosophy across the state as far as officiating soccer games at the high school level is concerned. So I'm going to mute everybody. First, I'm going to share my screen to make sure that people can see.
Maybe it's scary.
Can somebody just confirm they can see the slides?
We're good.
I'm
Thank you.
okay. Jim Twitchell.
Slide.
Slide.
Okay. Hold on a second. I'm just getting some
I didn't mute it.
some technical. Okay. I'll do that. Mute. That would be my own. There we go. Mute.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID.
What?
Mute my audio. Hold on just a second, please. Meeting controls.
Somebody keep
Participants.
talking. I think it's
There we
Terry.
go. Okay, everybody is muted at this point. And this is the way it's going to be throughout the session. I'm going to go through a few slides, give you all the opportunity to ask questions, and then move on. But everybody's going to stay muted, but you have the opportunity to take yourself off mute to ask questions if you need to. I know that there's a full agenda tonight, including this presentation, so I'll try to be efficient. I'm not going to rush through it, but I'm not going to say too much that's unnecessary. So just to start, this is the NFHS Soccer Rules Changes PowerPoint. And I just want to make clear at the start that, yes, it comes from NFHS. There are some changes made to it, specifically some highlighting that I've added for emphasis. I've also discussed this deck with the other interpreters, including Art, and there are some comments that we've agreed on for additional emphasis that are added to this deck, and some slides have been reordered from the original deck. So if you manage to get that from the NFHS website, I'm just explaining why it could look a little different. If you do have any questions after this meeting or anytime throughout the season, if you're on the Western board, Art is your first point of contact. We like to keep things local. His email is right here, arthurham@hotmail.com. If you are from another board or a coach elsewhere in the state, you can always contact me. My email is jtshirley@snet.net. If you're a coach within the Western board that's serviced by the Western board, again, Art is probably your best source. We like to keep things local so that officials within that board hear the same thing and they all know about the same thing. So if there's a question that's brought up, Art can bring it to the entire board. That's the way we like to keep things. If he has a question that he needs validation on before he answers, he'll contact me. But we stay aligned and I stay aligned with the other interpreters throughout the state. So let's move on. These first few slides I'm going to go through pretty quickly. They're pretty straightforward. I'm not going to say anything about this slide because it differs in absolutely no way from previous season. What is changed is this rule 411A about the uniform, and it says that players are no longer required to tuck in jerseys. This is because manufacturers have now created jerseys that are designed to be worn outside the shorts. So officials are not to require that players tuck in their jerseys any longer. And this Article 7 on Rule 427E has been deleted. And it's better explained by this graphic, which says that if a mouth or intraoral protector is completely clear or completely white, it is legal. And that is not something that was true in the past. Now it is totally legal. This is to bring soccer in line with other sports. I'm not going to pause there. And the change here doesn't have to do with deflated ball, but has to do with drop ball and how the drop ball is administered. So I'm going to move right to this slide that says if the ball becomes deflated during play, it's put into play with a drop ball to a player of the team last in possession at the spot where it was last played. That's pretty simple. We'll get into some situations later that are going to require us to slow down a little bit. But this change is not about the deflated ball, but about the drop ball. Used to be that the drop ball was between one or more opponents on each team. Now it is dropped to a single player on one team.
I got my headphones on.
Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. If the ball becomes deflated during a penalty kick, the kick will be retaken. This is not a change. It's not represent a rule change for this year. Not sure why they inserted that rule. But I'm going to move on here. So this one I'm going to slow down a little bit on. So this is about Rule 911B, ball in and out of play. I'm focusing on B here, which is the ball touches an official and remains on the field, and one of the following has to occur. A team starts a promising attack, or the ball goes directly into the goal, or possession changes. The ball is out of play. In other words, play stops when one of those three things happens after the ball touches an official. And it's pretty well explained by this graphic here. The white player kicks the ball, ricochets off the referee, and caroms to the black player. What happens? So that is a change in possession, and therefore play is stopped, and a drop ball occurs to the white team because the white team was last in possession. So the point of this rule change is that a team should not gain an advantage when the ball touches the referee and stays on the field. In the past, the referee was considered part of the field. Any ball that hit the referee just a continue play situation. Now, if one of those three situations occurs, either a team starting a promising attack or the ball going directly in a goal or a possession change, play is stopped and a drop ball is given to the team last in possession. I'm going to do one more slide and then we'll pause for questions. So again, the rationale for this rule change is to prevent either team from gaining an advantage as a result of the referee coming into contact with the ball. A deflection does not constitute possession. So going back to the graphic here, if white had kicked the ball and black simply deflected it and it hit the official, white would still have been considered to be in possession of the ball before it hit the referee. So the drop ball will go to the white team. And this is an important point. Officials should let the situation develop before stopping play. So similar to a situation where a referee would allow play to continue and allow an advantage situation, similar to that, officials should pause and wait a second or two before stopping play, because you don't know if it's going to lead to a promising attack. Obviously, if it goes directly into the goal, then that's one thing. For possession to change, that may take a second to happen. So let the situation develop. You can always stop it a second or two after it occurs. Just because it hits you doesn't mean you stop play automatically. I would recommend not yelling "play on." Play on has a very specific meaning to it. It's when a foul occurs and you're choosing to let play continue, so you yell "play on." My preference would be that you use a phrase that's different, something like "continue play," "keep going," something like that. No stoppage. Just let people know that you're allowing play to continue. I'll pause for any questions.
Hey, John,
Yes,
Joe Del Buono.
good job.
During the reading of the rules, I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, but distance the players have to be from the drop ball. I thought it's not 10 yards, correct?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. That's going to come up.
How about scoring a goal from the drop ball?
So good question. I believe it has to touch another player. Art Ham, if you want to look that up while I go on.
You cannot score a goal off a drop ball. If it goes in the net, it's a goal kick for the team.
Has to touch another player.
Unless it touches another player. So similar to an indirect free kick.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was done because of the fact that uncontested drop balls where they pass it back to the defense or pass it back to the goalie, they could actually take a shot and score a goal. That's why that was changed, so they cannot score a goal on that.
Right. So moving on, this Rule 921 drop ball Article 1, the E down here obviously was added when the ball touches an official. The game is restarted with a drop ball when the ball touches an official as per 911B. That's what we just talked about. We're still getting to distance requirements. If the ball was 922 and 923, when you have simultaneous touches, the ball is dropped 5 yards inside the boundary line to one player of the team in possession of the ball prior to the simultaneous touch. So in this particular situation, the player in white is in possession of the ball. He attempts to pass it to his teammate. Two players touch it simultaneously and the ball goes out of bounds. So for drop ball purposes, the drop ball goes to white 5 yards inside the boundary line. What I would add to this is, in the spirit of keeping the game moving, you should be able to make a call here one way or the other. And I don't think, if it's that close, I don't think you're going to get an argument either from the players or the coaches. if you truly do believe that it was touched simultaneously, by all means, do the drop ball, but you should be able to make a call in this situation. I'm going to keep moving on. So in terms of the drop ball, if I'm starting here in the middle, if one play was stopped, the ball was in the penalty area, or the last touch by either team was in the penalty area, the ball is dropped to the defending team's goalkeeper with all opposing players outside the penalty area. In all cases, all other players must remain at least 4 yards from the ball until it is in play. So this includes teammates of the person that the drop ball is going to, all other players. Opposing players have to be outside the penalty area if it's dropped to the defending team's goalkeeper. So here's this is not within the penalty area, but a drop ball goes to one player of the team that last possessed the ball. The ball is dropped where it was last touched by a player, blah, blah, blah. You see the 4 yards here. What officials need to be aware of is that the ball is not in play until it touches the ground. So there is easily the possibility here of an encroachment situation where as soon as it leaves the referee's hand, the team, the number 10 and number 5 in the black uniforms can start to rush the white number 9 player. And if that's the case, warn them, tell them the ball is not in play until it touches the ground, and warn them. I think this is an important point because you can make up a lot of that 4 yards, and the time it takes that ball to hit the ground, you can easily do a yard or two. There's another schematic here about the drop ball within the penalty area, ball being dropped to the defending team's goalkeeper. Notice how the language is very specific, and it says the defending team's goalkeeper. It doesn't say a member of the defending team. So keep that in mind as an official, that it cannot be a defender, field player. It has to be the goalkeeper. All opposing players, again, must be outside the penalty area. All players must be at least 4 yards from the ball. This diagram on the right could be a little misleading because what it implies here is that the arc of the penalty area is part of the penalty area, which it is not. If it's meant to be, if it's meant that these players in white are 4 yards away from the ball, then that's fine. But if being inside the arc, you are still 4 yards away from the ball, that's perfectly legal. It's not part of the penalty area. Joe, does that answer your question? There's no 10-yard requirement.
On that thing, the goalkeeper can't pick it up in that situation? Can he? He has to play with his feet?
No, the goalkeeper can pick it up with his or her hands. There's nothing prohibiting the goalkeeper from using his or her hands. The only situation keeper cannot use his or her hands is when the ball is passed back to the keeper intentionally. And there's no such prohibition under the drop ball rule. So therefore, yes, the goalkeeper can pick it up with his hands. And we had a question during one of the other sessions. Can the referee just hand the ball to the goalkeeper? In other words, can the goalkeeper punt it? No, you have to drop it. It has to hit the ground. Once it hits the ground, keeper can pick it up and then punt it if they want to, or roll it or whatever. Or they can play it with their feet. But there's nothing prohibiting the goalkeeper from playing the ball with his or her hands. So to close out the drop ball rule, all drop ball restarts are uncontested. If you find yourself in a situation where you think a drop ball should be between 2 opposing players, something's gone wrong. All drop ball restarts are uncontested. And as a reminder, the ball is in play when it touches the ground. A drop ball in the penalty area always goes to the defending team's goalkeeper. And a drop ball to a goalkeeper within his or her penalty area may be picked up with his or her hands. I'll pause there. Any more questions on the drop ball? Okay, I'll move on. Rule change on the free kick and how it's taken. If the free kick is awarded, I'm reading the highlighted section. If the free kick is awarded to the defending team in its penalty area, players opposing the kicker shall be outside the penalty area at least 10 yards from the ball and shall remain there until the ball is in play. We'll talk about this 3 or more defending team players in a minute. The difference here is when the ball is in play. The ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. So a free kick taken within a team's penalty area, the ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. So as soon as number 7 kicks it, that ball is in play, and this yellow defender here can charge the ball and take possession of it within the penalty area. No longer does this player in yellow or this player in white outside the penalty area, no longer does that player have to wait until the ball leaves the penalty area. It is in play as soon as it is kicked and moves. And this was a question that came up in one of the other meetings. This number 7 in white can pass the ball to the goalkeeper. So you can pass the ball to a teammate within the penalty area in a free kick. It does not have to leave the penalty area. The only requirement here is that this number 7 taking the penalty kick, taking the free kick, cannot touch the ball again until another player has touched it. If that happens, then it's an indirect free kick to the opposing team. But
the goalie cannot pick it up if they pass it to the goalie.
That's correct, because that would be intentional. So the keeper, if the keeper were to receive a pass from number 7, keeper would have to kick it with his or her feet and play it from there. But again, once it's kicked and moves, this yellow player outside the penalty area can move in, as well as, well, there was never really a restriction on this white player that's further away, but that's the big change. The ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. And we'll get to another rule change later, very similar, having to deal with goal kick. The goal kick will be treated the same way. This is what I mentioned earlier about what we will get back to as far as 3 or more defending team players forming a wall. When 3 or more defending team players form a wall, all attacking team players must remain at least 1 yard from the wall until the ball is in play. So this is kind of giving deference to the defending team and their ability or their desire to set up a wall. This yellow team that's taking the free kick from just outside the penalty area, these 2 players here cannot insert themselves into the wall. They must remain at least 1 yard away in all directions, but they can be in front, they can be behind, they can be on the side. Just to reiterate, the ball shall be kicked while it's stationary and on the ground. To be in play, the ball shall be moved in any direction. New rule here, 13.3.4. If the referee fails to signal, this is on an indirect free kick. If the referee fails to signal the kick is indirect and the ball goes directly into the opponent's goal, the kick shall be retaken. We've had some discussion in other meetings about the dual officiating system versus the 3-man system. 3-man system, obviously, there's one official who's got his hand raised and doesn't bring it down until that second player has touched the ball. Keep it raised until the second touch on the ball. In a dual officiating system, I would highly, highly recommend both officials have their hands up and both officials keep those hands up until that second touch has occurred. You don't want any discrepancy between officials or any confusion. Well, he had his hands up, he didn't. You don't want any of that situation. You don't want the officials to be involved in any pivotal play in the game because they either failed or didn't properly execute what they were supposed to. So again, hold the indirect kick signal until the kick is taken and the ball is touched by any other player. And this is just reiterating the dual officiating system, maintain the indirect free kick signal until the ball is touched by another player. Pause for questions.
Edward Monday here. Can you
Yep.
hear me?
Yes.
When there's a free kick inside the box and the goaltender kicks it on the back of his own player and basically goes back to the keeper, and now he picks it up with his hands.
Indirect free kick,
Or even direct.
indirect. And it has to occur. So in this situation, if number 7 were to kick the ball to the goalkeeper and the
Yep.
keeper picks it up with his hands, it's a indirect free kick for yellow, and it's taken on the goal line parallel to the goal line.
No, I'm talking about the goalkeeper not passing it, but just kicking the ball on number 7's back, and then it bounces right off of it.
Okay.
Now,
It's touched another player. However, if you think that that's trickery, similar to the situation where a player in possession of the ball flicks the ball to himself so that he can head it to the keeper so the keeper can hold the ball with his hands, that's considered trickery. I would put that in the same situation if you think that that was intentional. If not intentional, if he shanks it and it goes wide and happens to hit that number 7 player, I think that's legal. It's touched another player.
Now, I seen it on the field as doing it intentionally.
Yeah, it's trickery. Don't allow it.
Okay.
Moving on here to penalty kick. Not sure what brought about this change, but an opposing goalkeeper shall stand with at least 1 foot on or in line with the goal line. I think it's best if we just go to the graphic. The goalkeeper is not permitted to come off the line with both feet until the ball is in play. So here's the picture. What I like is the little insert picture here where it shows clearly that there's 1 foot on the line, 1 foot in front of the line, totally legal. When the ball is kicked and moves, then the player can come off the line. What I am going to suggest here is that if you are a center official and you've got ARs, or if you are in a dual officiating system, one person is dealing with the kicker and the other person is on the goal line watching the keeper, make sure that you are aligned in terms of what constitutes coming off the line too soon. So we've seen, hops, skips, and jumps. We've seen keepers jumping on the line and then so that they can quickly move once the ball is kicked. Perfectly legal because they're in line. But if they're doing that little hop and coming forward, there's a spectrum of situations here, and I won't get into all of them, but just have a clear vision in your mind what constitutes a violation by the keeper in terms of coming off the line. And if you're in a penalty kick situation, just discuss it briefly with that person with your partner or the AR before that kick is taken. As long as the back foot is on or in line with the goal line, it doesn't matter how far in front the lead foot is. It also doesn't matter if the back foot that is in line with the goal line, it doesn't matter if it's raised off the ground. So it doesn't have to be on the ground. It can be in the air as long as it is in line with the goal line. I'm going to move on. So similar to the free kick situation, we have a similar situation with the goal kick. The ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. Last year, it had to clear the penalty area to be in play. It is no longer the situation. The ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. And similar to what we had seen before, the yellow player can, if he wants to, pass it to the second yellow player. Now, in this particular situation, It doesn't specify that this other player is goalkeeper, but similar to what we said before, if the player kicking the ball kicks it directly to and happens to be the goalkeeper, that goalkeeper cannot pick up with his or her hands. And by the same token, the person taking the kick cannot kick it again or cannot touch it again until it has been touched by another player. But that ball is in play as soon as it is kicked and moves. Players on the white team can come into the penalty area and take possession of the ball. Important to note here, once spotted on the ground and within the goal area for a goal kick, ball is in play when it is kicked and moves. Also, once the ball is spotted on the ground, that ball cannot be picked up and moved to another spot. That could be considered time wasting. First offense, my recommendation would be just tell the player to put it down where it was. You can always stop the clock if you suspect time wasting, and in an extreme situation, you can give a caution in that situation. I wouldn't recommend that on the first offense. On a goal kick, teammates of the kicker may be in the penalty area and within 10 yards of the ball when it is put in play. However, in a goal kick situation, the opposing players have to start outside the penalty area, but once it is kicked and moves, can move inside. After the goal kick is properly taken, the ball may be played by any other player except the one who executes the goal kick. We discussed that already. Kicker may not play the ball until it has been touched by another player. It may be played by any player other than the kicker without having to leave the penalty area. So that ball, if he shanks that ball and it stops right here, anybody can play that ball. That does it for rule changes. I'll pause there before we get into some editorial changes. Also at the end of the deck, we have just a slide or two on COVID situations. Questions? Okay. First editorial change is about obstruction, and it's about a clarification of what obstruction is. And I haven't, to be honest, haven't looked in the rule book to make sure that the definition of obstruction in the definitions section mirrors what this is saying, but I'm assuming it is. Being in the way of an opponent is not an offense and is different from moving into the way. And what they stress here is shielding. May legally use his or her body to shield the ball from an opponent. Definition of obstruction has not been changed. The wording has been edited for clarity. So I'll get to a couple of points in a minute. This is just a situation, player dribbling the ball into the corner. While the ball is within playing distance, uses his or her body to block opponents from reaching the ball. Legal as this is shielding. So there's been some discussion about what playing distance means, and I think it's in the rule book on page 77. It talks about playing distance being within two steps, or approximately 6 feet. I'm going to mute everybody. It's two steps or about 6 feet is considered playing distance. I would use that as a guideline. I have seen many instances where, especially on breakaways, for instance, a forward on a breakaway can be playing the ball and certainly more than 6 feet away from the ball. However, I would also say that even if you are within 6 feet of the ball and you've got a teammate that's 1 foot away from the ball, you are not considered to be within playing distance of the ball. It's your teammate that is. And I will also add here, shielding with the body is legal. We all know that. And again, there's a spectrum of situations that I'm not going to get into, but at some point, extending the arms to prevent a player from playing the ball is obstruction. And what you have to decide is where on that spectrum shielding becomes obstruction. There are some clues that give you some help. It's the arms away from the body, it's arms extended, it's palms facing backward. Things like that are giving you a clue that obstruction is occurring. And again, it's a spectrum. You know, the arms can come out an inch. Maybe that's not obstruction. 2 inches, maybe not. 12 inches, probably. Arms extended, yeah, probably. So just keep those things in mind and think to yourself, you know, all the situations. The most typical one that I like to think of is ball is rolling towards the end line. It's either going to be a goal kick or a corner kick, and the defender is trying to keep the attacker from playing the ball. So the defender is pursuing the ball, but not with the intent to reach the ball, but is still keeping that playing distance in play and trying to keep that attacker from playing the ball. So that's the situation where you really got to watch out. Keep in mind that the penalty for obstruction is an indirect free kick. So if that happens when the ball is going towards the goal line and it's within the penalty box, it will not result in a penalty kick, but it will result in an indirect free kick situation that's going to take a little while to sort out. So keep that in mind as well. Another editorial change has to do with foul play. What I will say here is just keep in mind the difference between careless play, which is a foul, reckless play, which is a caution, and serious foul play, which is a disqualification. There are definitions on those in your rule book. Know them, think about them, and when you observe them, call them for what they are. I'm going to move on here to same thing, reckless play, serious foul play, know the difference, caution for reckless play, disqualification for serious foul play. I will pause there for questions before we get into COVID soccer rules considerations. Okay. So I'm sure all of you have seen, or if you haven't seen, I can point you to it on the CIAC website. There is the boys and girls soccer packets, which include at the front some soccer rules considerations. So you can get that off the CIAC website, full text. What I've done here is condense it to a single slide. This is high-level considerations from the committee that was the soccer-specific committee that was sanctioned by the CIAC to come up with these. I will say that these could be superseded at any time by further guidance from CIAC or by schools or you know, any local rules regarding soccer at the high school level. Where those rules come from, I can think of many, but there could always be more. But just be cognizant that this is what we know now, and it could very easily change by the time we see games in early October. So as far as the pregame conference is concerned, there's a head coach and a single captain from each team, plus the head or center referee at the center of the field. What this means is that either if you're doing a 2-man system or in a 3-man system, you're either going to have 1 or 2 referees that are not part of the pregame conference with the captains and coaches. So make sure as a center or head referee, you've communicated what you said to those captains and coaches so that the other referees in the game know what the expectations are that that center referee has given to the coaches and captains. Maintain social distance, suspend handshakes. I've lumped all these together: team benches, substitutions, ball holders, officials tables, encourage social distancing. So encourage is an important choice of words. It doesn't mean that you are a policeman as an official. What it means is that if you observe something, just as being a general citizen, you know, you can certainly are allowed to say something, but do not punish a situation where social distancing is not being observed. So you'll see at the bottom of the page where it says, officials are not responsible for monitoring activities on the sidelines, such as social distancing, hand washing, symptoms of illnesses, and other issues. This monitoring remains with the coaching staff and school personnel. Officials have enough to worry about on the field without being responsible for these kinds of activities that are happening on the sidelines. That being said, we are part of a community as officials, players, coaches, ADs, site administrators, spectators, if they're allowed. We're all part of a community that are trying to keep these games safe. The longer that we can observe some of these rules and guidelines, the longer we'll be playing into November. So if you see something, point it out. Don't be hostile. Don't be, you know, it's not a policing thing. It's, hey, you know, I prefer to stay apart. Again, officials' tables are limited to the home team scorer and timer. Hopefully that's not an issue. Suspend the pregame world introduction line, send players to their field positions for introductions. That's an option. I'm sure that schools will have their own ideas on how to do this. You might want to talk to the coaches or the site administrators on how they want to handle this at the start of the game. Suspend post-game handshakes. As soon as the game is over, I would actually recommend officials remain at the field until the teams break up into their own huddles after the game. You know, we've seen instances where officials have left the field immediately after a game to see a fight break out. Again, you're not shaking hands, but if you can acknowledge both teams and just hang around and make sure that teams are settled and heading in their own directions, that'd be great. Long pants, gloves, and safe cloth face coverings are permissible. I actually added in the word safe. We assume that cloth face coverings are safe. However, some of them I have seen do contain metal, especially in the bridge of the nose. Not that you're going to do an inspection of any masks that are being worn. If they're worn on the field, they can be. But if you observe that there is a face covering that is not safe for soccer, it shouldn't be used in the game. Encourage that player to find another mask if they prefer to wear one during the game. For officials, lawn sleeve shirts and jackets, gloves, cloth face coverings, electronic whistles are permissible. I happen to have one of the electronic whistles if you're looking for some feedback. I think it's definitely loud enough. I got mine off of officialsports.com. The complaint, it's actually a pretty minor complaint, is that it doesn't distinguish between hard and soft like an official would want to. So when you're starting play after a substitute and you just want a soft tweet versus a hard foul and you want to, you know, make it known that you're there, that would be, you know, a hard, longer whistle. It doesn't distinguish between that. You press a button and as soon as you unpress it, it stops. But it doesn't differentiate beyond that. But it is an option. If you want to wear a cloth face covering on the field, they are optional. Just one more slide and then I'll be done. This what you see in red here is what the other.
Ask a question about the face covering.
Go ahead.
Graphics on the face covering.
No rule against it.
So they can have anything. I mean, obviously if it's profane, they can't have it, but if they want to have, you know, skeleton face and stuff like that, that's legal?
There's nothing. So this is where we've had discussions similar to this. It's not a trivial question because it crosses into areas that we just don't know about because we haven't been given guidance about this. but we don't have, since we haven't been given guidance about it, let it go. If it's on the uniform, we do have, there are rules about what the uniform can and cannot contain. Numbers, name of schools, that's it. But, there's been nothing around masks. So it's actually a good question, and hopefully CIAC will provide some clarity around that. If you want to discuss it with the coach, feel free. But again, I would say it's not a situation that's punishable, just because we don't have that clarity.
Thought on long pants? They have to be the same color as the uniform worn?
Let's put it this way, they should be. So I believe, so we know about the undergarments having to be the same. So if you're wearing lawn sleeved undergarments, they do not have to be the same within a team, but they have to be the same within a person. So the right cannot be a different color from the left. Again, unless the rules specifically say anything about pants, which for players, I don't believe the rules cover that in the equipment section. But if it does, I would refer to that. If it says that they have to be, similar color to the shorts, that's a good question. I hadn't thought of that. But I don't think, similar to, so a player with a white uniform can wear a white undergarment shirt, lawn sleeve shirt, but a player with a white uniform shirt on the same team can also wear a black undergarment shirt. So same players or different players on the same team do not have to dress the same as far as undergarment shirts are concerned. And I don't think there is anything in the rule book about pants. So my inclination is to say it's legal.
I was just wondering if they come out with, blue long pants because it's a cold day.
Yeah, so I would.
Comes out with black and another one comes out with orange.
Yeah, I would use the philosophy that if you can tell the difference between the two teams easily, then let it go. If a player on a white shirted and white shorts team comes out with a black pants and the other team is wearing black uniforms, I would ask that player to change the pants.
Okay.
You don't want confusion between the two teams, I think is the main point. Now, obviously you're going to run into, navy looks a lot like black. I'm going to leave that to you guys on the field to decide. You've got at least 2, maybe 3 referees at the game. Consult with each other. You see the players warming up. You see a player who's got navy blue pants on, and the other team's black. It's up to you guys to decide whether that's going to be confusing for you. I think that's the bottom line is you need to be able to tell the difference between the two teams. And if that's going to be confusing, ask them to change.
Hi guys, I have a question here.
Say that again?
Yeah, I have a question here. I just joined and I applied for a new ref. And can you explain to me how that goes?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I just applied for this year for a new ref.
Yeah.
I'm a new on this. So sorry by my accent. I wasn't born here. I'm from Europe, so that's why you don't understand me. So
okay, no problem.
All I want to know, I didn't have any information how that goes. I didn't hear nothing about it.
Fetty, we'll talk to you after about this. I'll give you a call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Joe Buono again. If I'm looking in the rule book, it says if visible apparel is worn under the jersey or shorts, it shall be of similar length for an individual, all solid, and of like color for team members. So if they're wearing undergarments,
Yeah.
one can't wear red, one can't wear black, one can't wear green. If they're wearing undergarments, they all have to be the same color.
Like color. So again, that's,
So-
I'll leave that to you guys to determine what's like and what's not. Red versus pink.
I think as a state interpreter, you're gonna have to come up with something for everybody to follow, but I think we, if they're wearing pants, they all should be, if they're blue, they should all be blue. If they're green, they should all be green. If it's a jacket, you know, and we're gonna allow it, I think the rule means that they can't wear multiple colors. They have to wear the same color.
So I would say, yeah, the difference between black and white, definitely. You know, black and navy. Are you gonna call that?
Red, they could all wear black. But if the team is red and one wears white, one wears black, one wears green, that's illegal.
Correct.
The problem is if both teams come out with the same color. If both teams come out with all black or all white.
They could wear the black shorts. Everybody can wear, all the teams could have the same color shorts. Both teams could have the same color shorts. The only colors that are different are the jerseys and the socks.
That's correct. So what I'm saying, Joe, is yes, the difference between, you know, black, white, and red is obvious, but the difference between, you know, black and navy, is that a like color? That's up for you guys to decide.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's literally too many shades of gray to be able to
Yep.
make a blanket statement, but certainly you are correct. If they have to be of like color and it's obvious that they are not, so somebody on the same team is wearing white pants and somebody on the same team is wearing black pants, that's not acceptable. They should at least be the same dark, you know, blue, black, or, you know, even red or pink, but not red and black, not red and white, not black and white. But that's for the officials to decide. Again, the whole point of teams wearing a like color is so that referees can distinguish between the two teams. And if they can do that, great. But teams should be given some freedom, and that's up for the officials to decide how much freedom in terms of like color. And I think that's probably why the NFHS is use that specific terminology, was to give some leeway to the officials to determine what that is.
John,
Yes.
one other thing. You're talking about the players wearing jackets.
Yep.
They can't wear a jacket if we can't see the number.
The number has to be on the jacket.
Yeah, the number would have to be the legal size on the back of the jacket for us.
Yep.
And on the front. Other than that,
Yep.
They can wear the jacket under the jersey.
under, yeah, but not over.
Correct. Unless it's unless it has a number.
And it's of similar color to the jersey.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, this is new territory. We're giving, the CIAC has decided to give a lot of leeway to players and officials, you know, in regards to what's appropriate for games to wear. So this is an experiment. And, you know, do give your feedback and do have discussions at your boards, whether it's WCSOA or elsewhere, about what's working and what's not and what situations are coming up. And hopefully Art will give me that feedback and I can take it to CSOA, and maybe we can lobby CIAC to make some, pardon the pun, but make some uniform decisions around these rules, because what we have now is just not, on one hand, it's not detailed enough, but you also don't want to go into the other extreme where you're dictating, how long the pants is, pants to the knees, pants to the ankles. We don't want to get into that argument, but we have to find that balance between rule changes that are accommodating because of COVID-19 and overdoing it one way or the other. Last slide, the other interpreters in the state got together in July and we agreed on this phrase here, which is getting in the face of an opponent or referee is subject to a caution and consistent with unsporting conduct. So here's a rule, or here's a guideline that takes into account both whether you call it, you could call it dissent, or you can call it unsporting conduct, but this is a part where we as officials take some responsibility for the safety of others. So if there's a collision between two players and they both fall down, one gets up, starts running away, and the other is chasing after him, and he's within a foot of him, and he's yelling at him, that is subject to a caution. And I think this phrase is chosen pretty carefully, subject to a caution. Every situation is different. Officials have to decide what constitutes unsporting conduct in this situation. If it's an incidental, hey, get away from me, or if it's somebody that's following somebody around the field and really shadowing him and staying within, literally a foot of his face, that's one extreme, and subject to caution. What we don't have, which I've heard a lot of questions on, we don't have clarity on spitting. There's nothing in the rule book that, other than spitting at an opponent or spitting at an official, which is a red card, just a person spitting on the ground, or maybe a goalkeeper spitting into his gloves. We don't have any clarity at all from CIAC or anywhere else what kind of punishment, or if at all, that action would incur. For those of you who are familiar, I haven't seen them myself, but I'm told that Massachusetts has made exactly that ruling, that is subject, I think, to yellow card. Art, you have any insight into that? You're on mute, maybe. All right, we'll move on. A group celebration following a goal goes against social distancing guidelines, but is not punishable. So this falls into the area of, at the bottom here, officials not responsible for monitoring activities. You're going to maybe see players, as they have in the past, huddle on the field before the kickoff. You're gonna let that slide. It's not punishable, but it's something that the school should be dealing with. So again, this is new area. It's kind of putting officials in kind of a tough spot, because we are partly responsible for the safety of everybody at the game, yet we want this to be soccer, and we don't want to overdo it. And there's certainly nothing in the rule book that allows for yellow cards on the basis of celebrating a goal with a teammate, unless, again, as a player, calling attention to himself or taking off his shirt or something like that to celebrate a goal, which is different from just doing, high fives or something going back to their side of the field. So final bullet here is very important. Officials are strongly advised to discuss these and other situations with each other. So with your partner in a 2-man or your ARs in a 3-man, and at the pregame conference with coaches and captains. Decide what it is that's important to you. It's not a litany of all these things, but give the players and coaches a heads up on what you're thinking. It will really help. Again, not in a confrontational way, but in a cooperative way. We want to stay on the field as long as we can into November. So let's make that happen. I'm done there. It's 8 o'clock. So I've gone for an hour. I'm done, but any other questions?
John, this is Matt Pwanda.
Yep.
I know this is not USSF, but we've been given guidance from the state referee administrator that spitting is punishable by a yellow card on the first offense and red card for second offense.
I've seen that as well. You're right. This is not USSF, and until NFHS or CIAC comes through with a similar ruling, we are not going to follow that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? Any questions?
Okay, John, we thank you very much on behalf of the WCSOA and everybody else attending the meeting. You're very clear, and appreciate your time and efforts into going over these new rule changes. Art, Ham, would you like to chime in now with anything more? Okay, and at this point, the any coaches or referees from other boards, you can of course log out and the meeting. Listen, if you would like to make sure that you are in attendance, I asked everybody to put their names and their affiliation in the chat box. And if you really want to be notified, if you want to be notified, I would suggest writing a quick letter to Lee Lewis. Just say you were in attendance, and he'll forward a letter to your proper board. All right. Well, thank you guys for attending. If you're not, again, WCSOA, stay on. We'll make it a quick meeting, I think, for our regular business meeting. But John, thank you once again.
Yep, thank you. Jim, since this is my Zoom session, I'm just going to leave the room and leave the Zoom session going. I'm going to stop the recording.
Cool. Thank you. That's all we needed. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks.